Let's get it. This is Life's Essential Ingredients with Jeff and a Mike, where we hope to inform, inspire, and transform lives, one essential ingredient at a time. Welcome to the show. Yeah, I say this, listeners, I apologize, but every episode I'm always so excited. I love doing these podcasts. They're so much fun for me, and I just can't thank you enough for tuning in. We are in 36 countries now where we've had listeners tune in, over 450 cities, and Mike and I just wanted to say thanks for your support and for listening in. And this episode, season 2, episode 37 with Dawn Barclay, is coming from New York's Hudson Valley, is going to be a great one. And first of all, where you can find our guest via her website is the best one, travelingdifferent.com. And I'll say it one more time, travelingdifferent.com. So about our guest, Dawn is an award-winning author who has traveled the world. Dawn was inspired by her parents, who are also travel experts, and has since written for various travel magazines. Dawn is an accomplished author with works in fiction and most recently her new nonfiction book, Traveling Different: Vacation Strategies for Parents of the Anxious, the Inflexible, and the Neurodiverse. So a little bit about that book. Traveling with children is always challenging, but for parents of children with autism spectrum disorder and or mood and attention and distraction disorders, it can be especially intimidating. How should parents of children experiencing meltdowns deal with clueless and judgmental onlookers? What are the best methods to alleviate motion sickness when your child might already be on a cocktail of drugs? Traveling Different: Vacation Strategies for Parents of the Anxious and Inflexible and the Neurodiverse answers these and many other questions parents may have while traveling with their children. Dawn, thanks for sharing your gift of hope and love of travel with families and children. And thanks for being our guest on Life's Essential Ingredients. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. And so we always start out with a thought of the day, which is a quote that I picked after researching you. And it's a good one, and it's a simple one. It's from Agnes Repler. And the quote is this: "The impulse to travel is one of the hopeful symptoms of life."
That's great.
Why would I pick that for you?
Yeah, that's terrific. And I grew up traveling, and I truly believe it's the best educator. And yes, it does give you hope that the world can come together.
I love it. We're definitely going to get into some of your favorite places, but we always like to kind of let the listeners know a little bit about you. And this is a very broad question, so I'll let you take whatever part of it you want. But what was life like growing up? Maybe going back to your younger years, and just share any part of that you would like to.
Yeah, I was always on the road. My grandparents and my aunt and uncle were in Britain. My parents owned a big travel agency and always traveled with me. I didn't always travel with my brother. Sometimes they take him one place and me another. But I grew up in a very cosmopolitan lifestyle where I really became very comfortable with travel and expected that my children would also be. And that's what led to the writing of the book, because they were not so excited about travel or traveled as well as I did. But yeah, I had a very blessed childhood that my parents were in travel, and I ended up working for them for a long period of time as well, and spent my life on the road.
What a gift that your parents gave you early on. And I have 8 brothers and sisters, and we were more so like your kids. We just didn't know. It wasn't an option really for us to go travel. And I still don't know how my mom and dad pulled it off. When I was in 4th grade, we all went to Hawaii. And that was our one trip that we did for my whole life, with my family. And we had all of our needs met, but going on a trip like that was not easy to put together for my parents. And so I didn't really grow up with the benefit or just even the desire to travel. It just wasn't really on my radar And luckily my wife loves to travel, and so she's inspired that in me. But yeah, what an amazing gift that you have been given and then have shared with your kids, and then now share with the world with your book. And just, yeah, what are some of the benefits of travel, again, that you have identified from your life? If there's a listener out there like me that didn't ever have any exposure and just say, I'm kind of good, with where I'm at, convince them of trying to get out and reach out and go travel.
I think I learned more from travel than any education I ever got from books. You learn that the world is filled with a lot of different people and a lot of different cultures, and there's not one right way of doing anything. And the more you travel, the more you become accepting of others. And I truly believe if people were out there traveling more, there'd be a lot less discrimination and hatred in the world. So I grew up with it being very natural that people did things differently, and there were different kinds of foods and just different cultures that always fascinate me. So when I hear someone with an accent, I know that it's sort of like politically incorrect now to ask where they're from, because I guess they're afraid you're going to judge them in some way. But I'm really interested where they're from, because I want to know if I've been there. And if I haven't, I want to know why I should go there. So I guess I'll continue to be politically incorrect.
I love it.
Hey, Dawn, speaking of that, I'm always curious too. And I'm always aware that when I ask the question, I don't want to ask, where are you from? Just because of that. Have you developed a way that's kind of more acceptable that people understand without being upset of you when you ask them the question, where are you from?
I think what I do is I say, I've traveled around the world and I'm not familiar with your accent and I'm just wondering where it's from. That might be one way I do it. Sometimes I just say, where are you from?
I don't know if this is any good, but and it could be, I don't want to say just as bad, but yeah, it's about trying to connect with people. When I hear an accent, I'll just ask, oh, do you speak another language?
Yeah.
And sometimes, and I don't know if that's just as bad or not, but they're obviously speaking English, and then you hear an accent, and then for me, that kind of is a segue for opening up a door to have them educate me even on the language, and then potentially, where they learned that language. So yeah, but I'm fascinated too with culture and languages, because it's just about learning and then developing a connection, and yeah. I think sad's too strong, but I think it's gotten to be a little bit sad that we have to worry about offending. I get it, but I still think that's such a great opportunity to learn about each other through language and culture.
Yeah.
And so what are some of, first of all, let's define culture. How do you define culture? That's just one of those words that's, I think, can mean something different to everybody. But let's say for the travel purposes, since you're the expert on our show, how do you define culture?
I just guess it's the way people live their lives and their values and their mores, just the way they do things. What's courtship like? What's marriage like? What's the legal system like? What are their artifacts or their handicrafts like? I like visiting their museums. I like trying different foods. It's all sort of a melange of that.
I love it.
For me, I don't know if that's the textbook definition, but that's what it means to me.
No, and I think that's great. And I think it can and probably does mean something different to everybody. And that's the beauty of travel, of getting to go experience that and then just getting transformed and brought into that culture so you can see what life looks like, from their perspective. And then what kind of gem can I take from gaining that exposure to a different culture and bring that into my life, and then bring that back to our culture, say in the States. And just like you said, if we could even just do just that, get people out into the world so we can see things from all these different perspectives, a lot of the challenges that we have as far as race goes would be, I don't want to say non-existent, but they would definitely be less, because we would see things from other people's perspectives.
Yes.
And that is truly what the world needs. And one kind of house rule that my wife and I, we, for the most part, were able to stick to it when we travel. We like to ride the bus. And it's definitely slower for sure, but you get to meet the real people that are in that area as opposed to renting a car and everything else. And so, I love your definition of culture. So I want to stick with the travel, then we're going to get into your book because there's so much to unpack with that. But Mike and I haven't been all over the world. Where do we need to go?
That's really going to depend on you and what you enjoy. For me, I love beaches. So if I had the chance to go back to Tahiti, I'd be there. If I could get to the Maldives, or I've been to the Seychelles, that was beautiful, but I'd like to get to the Cook Islands and the Maldives. I just gravitate toward the South Pacific and the Indian Ocean. Love those areas. But if you love food, you're going to want to go. I mean, there's so many places, but I'd send you to Italy because I don't believe you can get a bad meal in Italy. Just so many places. It's so hard to tell you that.
What about that's narrow? So Mike doesn't like being out in the sun. I'm good with the beaches and the food. So you covered me with that stuff. So someone that doesn't really like to be in the sun so much and isn't going to go lay on the beach and things, maybe a bigger city that's beautiful to look at.
Maybe if you like winter sports, you could go. There's a million places you could go skiing. May I suggest Switzerland or the Austrian Alps?
All right.
I'm very partial to Australia as well. I loved Australia when I went. I have not been to New Zealand, but it's on my bucket list. Morocco's on my bucket list. I'm sad to say there are places I have not yet been.
Last question, we're going to get into your book. What about, and my wife and I just did the Camino de Santiago. Are you familiar with
I know people who it's a walking trip.
Yes.
It takes several days. No?
Oh, yeah, we did 31 days for us.
Yeah.
We walked 31 straight days without taking a break. And we started in Pamplona and then ended in Compostela de Santiago. And it was about a 500-mile journey, but was just an incredible way to experience the Spanish culture and just meeting people from all over the world that we're talking about, which is great timing for having you on the show. But let's get into your book. So what was the inspiration behind writing it, first of all?
Well, as I said, I grew up traveling. I expected my children to love to travel. They were not so happy about it. Had a lot of problems with transitions, with sensory issues, definitely anxious and inflexible, which is why the title is titled as it is. I believe there should be a book for everything, including a book to help me with this problem. And when I looked, there wasn't. So I had to write it. And back in the early 2000s, I started interviewing people like Dr. Tony Atwood, who's very large in autism circles. I spoke to Dr. Ellen Littman, who's very well known in ADHD circles. And then I kind of hit a bump because I didn't know where else to look. And the internet was not back then what it is now. And it was not until an organization called IBCCES created a designation called the Certified Autism Travel Professional that I knew exactly how I could write the book. These people have had intense training on how to handle people on the spectrum. Many of them are special needs parents themselves. And I was able to interview them. They introduced me to their clients. There was a lot more information on the internet that I could work from and find new people to interview. And then I had a 2-year pandemic, which left me with lots of time to write a book like this that I'd been meaning to write for years.
Wow. That I have not been blessed to read your book, but sounds very comprehensive and sounds very kind of research based. And it sounds like it's been in the works for, 20 years or so.
Yeah. Well, when I actually got to writing it, it took me about a year. And then it took me about a year and a half to get it sold, get it edited. And then the publisher waits 9 months before putting it out because they have all this promo to do and the revisions and everything else. It is the compilation of about 100, little over 100 interviews with mental health professionals, certified autism travel professionals, parents, allies, and advocates. I like to think it's pretty comprehensive, about 344 pages, broken down by mode of transportation. And then once you get there, where you should stay in terms of how to choose between a hotel and a vacation rental, how to vet a campground. And then what to do when you get there, whether it's a sightseeing tour or it's a special interest museum or a theme park. All that sort of information. I also start with basic strategies about starting small, creating a child-centric holiday, all that information that you can use to create your own vacation. Really about 75, 80% of the book, 85% of the book is strategies, and only a small portion is where you should go, because that's always changing and growing. I want somebody to be able to read the book and create their own vacation. And if they use a certified autism travel planner, even better, because those people are going to make it easier for you.
Man, I love that there is a certified autism travel professional / planner. We had an amazing guest on the show a while back, I think in season 1, Dr. Capella Hodge out of Connecticut, and she works with Neurodiverse. And at that time, I think she was saying it was 1 in 37 births had a child that was going to be birthed to autism. And then I can't believe it, but she was saying the numbers are going to just increase. And so when I ran across you and having you on the show, I was like, man, what a great fit, because there is such a need. And I couldn't imagine, I've been blessed to have 2 daughters that don't have autism, but to be someone such as yourself who loves to travel, and every parent wants what's best for their children, and you see the benefits of travel, but how it would be a challenge with someone with autism. And what again, a gift that you're giving parents to be able to have this turnkey document with all the research that you put into it to open up that door to get their children and their family these experiences.
Yeah, what I found, which was really interesting, was that the special needs travel tips really apply to any family, because travel is jarring and every child craves familiarity, predictability, routine. And when you pull a child out of their routine, you pull them out of their comfort zone and they become anxious and inflexible. So when I recommend preparing in advance or getting a child's buy-in on a trip or introducing the concept of travel, that can only help any vacation for any family.
Yeah, and I'll agree. I mean, when you're talking there, I'm like, you're talking about me. Mike and I are tall. I'm 6'8" and Mike's 6'7", and I enjoy getting to where we're going. But from the time I get to the airport to the time I get to the hotel, I'm not happy, and I am anxious, and I'm in pain, and I'm just not comfortable. So I definitely see so much value in the knowledge that you're sharing. So what are some steps, towards speak to someone that's listening that is so excited for this subject matter, and they're like, I've always wanted to take my child, but been a little bit anxious myself to do that because there's certain triggers. What would be one of the first steps towards getting their child ready and their family ready to travel?
Great question. So first of all, introducing the concept of travel to a child. So even if you've got like a 6 or 7 year old, chances are they have not been traveling for the last 2 or 3 years because of the pandemic. So everything is sort of new to them again. So first of all, introducing the concept could include writing picture books with favorite characters in travel situations. It could involve role play. It could involve something called social stories, which is a narrative from the child's point of view that's developed by Carol Gray, who's an autism expert. You should absolutely check her out. It's Gray. See what that's all about. Videos of every aspect of the trip is another way to make the unfamiliar familiar to a child. So you can get them from a supplier, you can find them on YouTube, but really I have one father who said he reviews theme parks, different rides in theme parks to decide and rule out certain rides for his kids. And then I believe in something I call mini experiences. So before you spend thousands to go to a hotel, maybe go to a friend or relative's house for a night and experience what it's like sleeping in a bedroom other than your own, because right away the triggers are going to show up, whether the child needs the blankets and sheets from home, the familiar texture and scent, or the toiletries from home, same thing, scent. Or maybe they need a fan to drown out noise from outside the room in the hallway. Maybe they need a night light. You'll know, and that will help you prepare when you actually take the journey. Same thing when you're going camping. Why not set up a tent in the backyard for a night and test it out? Before you go on a long train trip, take a short commuter train trip. Before you take a long flight, maybe you take a short flight. You could take a ferry ride instead of a cruise, just so the child gets a sense of what this is going to be, and you're creating a positive frame of reference. And for touring, maybe you go to a local zoo, aquarium, museum, or a yard sale and call it a scavenger hunt, but also call it a tour. So you've got that frame of reference.
I love it. I love just the many experiences, and even just going to a neighbors or family members and staying the night. Because we're all creatures, and we're obviously your book was written for the neurodiverse, but I do see so many helpful tips just in everybody, because by just being a human, you want things that are predictable. You want your routine. And so I think, in hearing you trying to figure out, hey, what are the triggers that are going to cause my child and even my family to be like, hey, this is unpredictable. Now I'm used to being at home and have this routine down, and let's identify those. So then now when we're taking this big trip, we're already prepared for everything and already introduced it. And now we get to go out and enjoy it, because we can control our controllables when there's so many things that you can't control.
Yeah.
And so that would be my next question is, you've done everything that you've talked about. You've done all those mini experiences. And all right, hey, now we're going to go for it. You're going for it. And now everything becomes unpredictable. Is that a naive question a little bit? I see
No,
on your face. But
no.
Let me restate it. You run into some unpredictability. And what do you do during that time?
Well, the next thing you're going to do after you introduce the concept of travel is you're going to do your research about where you're going to go. And you're going to maybe pick 2 or 3 places that are either autism certified or autism friendly, either through your own research or with a certified autism travel professional. And then you're perhaps going to take these pre-approved destinations and go to your child and say, here are some options. Where do you think we should go? Because you're giving your child some control and some purchase and a vested interest in the success of a trip by buying in. And you maybe do the same thing for what are you going to do every day? Have the child select a couple of things, because then they have a personal stake in the trip. Then you're going to break it down to the nth degree and say, I'm going to have to leave the house to get to the airport. If you're going by air, how am I going to do that? And a lot of times you may rather take a private car than a bus, because you have more control over the situation that way. The smells, the timing, you can always pull off if you need a break. Same thing when you arrive. How are you getting to the hotel? Again, a private car transfer might be better than, even if the hotel offers a free bus, that might not be the best for your child. What are you going to do every day? And always have a backup plan. So what are we going to do if the plane is delayed? Well, guess what, my child? I've got these little presents that if we're delayed, you're going to get one of these presents every hour or so. And now you've made the kid hope there's a delay.
Every hour.
But I mean, I don't know, whatever you want to do, but you want to bring noise canceling headphones. You want to bring their electronics with their favorite TV shows and movies. You want to keep them distracted. You know what your child needs to do that. But you're absolutely going to want to plan for every sort of eventuality that you can. And you know what? You're going to screw up, and there are going to be things that come up, and you're going to put them in your toolkit for next time, because it's always a learning experience. What my book is setting out to do is to ward off a lot of the meltdowns. But, maybe I get you 75% of the way there, and you'll learn the rest on your own based on your child.
I love it. Yeah, you definitely have some great resources. And I was listening to you on another podcast, and I did get to take great notes, but there's a Wings for Autism.
Yes.
What?
Excellent.
Tell the listeners about that.
Yeah, the ARC is an organization that runs Wings for Autism. It's not at every airport, but it is at many. And they closed down for COVID, but they're coming back. And what they will do is give you a dress rehearsal of what the airport experience is going to be like from arrival at the airport to boarding. So that's a very helpful program. There are also airlines that will give you a tour of the airport if you need it, and you can call and find out what's available. There are airports like Minneapolis, which now have a cabin, an actual airline cabin, which is in, I think, Terminal 1, that you can go in and experience. So being in the plane is not going to be so unpredictable and new to you. A number of airports have low sensory rooms now. Pittsburgh is one of them, but they're growing. There are airport therapy dogs that are in many airports around the country. And there is an organization called TSA Cares that you can give a call to that will, they're, again, not in every airport, and the level of service differs by airport. But if you call them up and tell them you're coming, they can normally help you through security and some of the more, areas of travel that are confusing to a child or could be triggers.
And I just love all the resources that you're listing. And I love that our world is getting to the place where we can have those resources so all people can travel and get to experience just the benefits of culture like we're talking about, and just trying different things. And I know, I don't know if this was from your book or another podcast, but there was some research, 93% of special needs parents, they don't travel, but they would love to.
Yeah, 1,000 special needs parents that were interviewed by IBCCES, 87% said they don't travel, but of those, 93% would if they knew where to go and what to do. And part of that was having the reassurance that where they went was specially trained to offer them what they needed. Again, good reason to write the book.
Yeah. And I know there's like certified autism centers.
Yes. Again, IBCCES. I feel like I should be their spokesperson because I talk about them so much. There are other certifying companies. They've just done such an amazing job, and they have provided training for venues such as resorts, water parks, hotels, museums, you name it. You can find them at autismtravel.org that have, this consistent training. It has to be redone every year. So the people there are trained, the staff is trained in how to help you. The signage is there. So for example, at SeaWorld, there'll be a sign that will tell you beyond this point, this is what you're going to smell. So if you have a child who really is scent-averse, they may not want to go and feed the seals. Might not be worth it to them, but at least they know in advance. So yeah, the IBCCES certifies a lot of different kinds of people, really great organization. And again, I'm not on their payroll.
Oh, I love it. And you mentioned smell, and I guess I'm just a little bit naive, but is that a big trigger for neurodiverse individuals?
Yeah, autism is a disorder. I think like over 91% of children with or people with autism have sensory disorders. So vision, bright flickering lights, even fluorescent lights with that annoying hum can be upsetting. Noise, construction sites, sirens, alarms, dogs barking, smells, those perfume, cologne, fish being fed to seals, and touch. So a lot of children are triggered by the tags in clothing or itchy fabrics, and your child and what's going to help them or what they can't deal with.
Yeah. Well, what an incredible resource. Do you have any plans for any other upcoming books? I know you write other books, but the show is about you, not just about your current book. What's on the radar for you?
I have pitched a series to my publisher. I'm waiting to hear on that. I do have some other ideas for books that are actually involve travel, but not on the spectrum. And I just started another thriller, because I write under DM Bar. I write romantic suspense and I write psychological thrillers. So I'm so busy with promo for this book that I haven't had a lot of chance to work on it. So my critique group is getting a little annoyed at me because I keep coming in without any pages. But I do promise Janet that I am going to finish the book.
All right, Janet, she's speaking to you. Well, man, you're doing so many incredible things, helping people in more ways than I'm sure you're aware. We love this question as part of a way to kind of wind down the show, but it's a quote from John Alston. The only thing you take with you when you're gone is what you leave behind. Let's fast forward, 40 years, 50 years from now, you're on your deathbed, you've traveled, all your bucket list is wiped off. There's nothing there. You've done everything that you set out to do. You're surrounded by people that love you. What is it you want them to take away from the experience of you being in their life as you get ready to take your last breath?
What a question. I hope that they'll look back and remember the times I made them laugh. I think that laughter is the most important thing in life. I try to make everyone laugh. A lot of times I do that unintentionally. But I do try, and I try not to take myself all that seriously. So I think if this book has opened up people's lives, that would make me really happy. If my fiction has helped entertain people, I get letters from people like in Brazil and India, people I'm never going to meet who really like my fiction books. That means the world to me. I'm never going to meet those people, but to know that I affected them and entertained them in some way is a really great feeling. This book more so, because now I've helped open up their life. So I hope there's another 50 years, because that'll make me one of the oldest people alive ever. Thank you. And it's a depressing question.
No, it's not supposed to be depressing. I mean, death is coming for us all. And as soon as we realize that, the quicker we get to living. And then it's the legacy question of like, all right, well, since I'm having this sense of urgency to share my gift, let me get out there and, what is that I want people to feel with their time with me, which then, to me, in my mind, gets me, all right, let me get out there and get doing that so I can create that. So when I do take my last breath, I'm like, hey, take me. I'm ready because I've lived a full life. So definitely it's not meant to be a depressing question at all. It's meant to get us hyped up and ready to go and do everything that you're doing. And with that, listeners, you can find Dawn Barclay, best place, travelingdifferent.com. Again, she's got a bunch of other books out there. Can they find your other books? I know this is for your new book, but links to your other books.
It's probably, I don't know that Traveling Different mentions, it might mention my author name, which is DM Bar. If they want to read my fiction, dmbar.com.
All right. All right. Well, I know I've been taking up the whole mic this time. I'm going to let my Pasho close us out. You can tell how good he looks. He's the eye candy of the show. He did just get a haircut. Man, he's looking sharp, repping C4. Pashito, get us out of here, baby.
I'm always amazed, Don, that people that they see a need somewhere in the world and they plug themselves in to help. And I'm always in awe of that. And I can't thank you enough for all the people that are going to benefit. And just in this short time, you have some great tips I never would have even thought of. And yeah, I'm not a big traveler because I don't like to fly, but I'm getting better. So now I think you inspired me maybe to take the family on a trip somewhere, on a plane, somewhere, get out. But on behalf of everyone, Dawn, appreciate it. Thank you so much, man. It's been a great chat. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, Dawn, any last comments for the listeners?
Yeah, he can travel by train. No, my last comment is, if I could say anything, is if you find a location in my book that's listed as either certified autism center or autism friendly, really do your due diligence, because certifications change, addresses even change. Sometimes I found places that have moved. Not every place that's low sensory is low sensory every day of the month. Make sure that the place is right for your child and that what you need is being offered when you'll be there. Also, as much as I would love you to buy my book, and I really would, be sure to order it at your local library as well, so people who can't afford it can have access to it. And if you find a mode, something that you've done for your child that's different than what I've described, you found a better way, write to me. My email address is in the book, or you can write to me via my website. You may end up in my blog. You may end up in a future edition of the book, but I'd love to hear from you.
Man, I love it. What a great way to end the show. Listeners, thanks again for tuning in to another informative episode of Life's Essential Ingredients. Pashito, we out, baby. Boom. That just happened.